Everyone, it's late at night, and there's been some things I've had on my chest for a while, and I feel like I've needed to get them off, so I decided I'm just gonna post this video because I'm at this point in my life where things gotta change, and there's so much that I feel, and I realize I still struggle to kind of speak it all out and not overthink it. So I'm just gonna just kind of go for a bit because I've been, it's been really weird, right? Because I'm gonna be saying like I've been feeling really sad, probably more sadness in my life. I would say the last month and a half, um, I've been feeling more sadness than I've ever felt in my entire life. Um, but it's weird because it's not like a depression or anything like that. There's also been a lot of happiness. I recently, something I believe is that sadness enables us to feel our joy, you know? Because I'm definitely, without a doubt, the most joyful and peaceful I've ever felt in my life. Um, but in that, I've discovered there's a lot of sadness, and as I let go of the past and I look forward to the future, there's a lot of relics and sort of skeletons in my closet. And if you know me, something that's been really hard for me is this idea of feeling like a victim or feeling like I'm not responsible for everything. And I realize, though, that sometimes this tendency to take responsibility for everything uh, maybe can project as looking like control in other aspects of my life. And I'm now in a position where some things have happened. It's been a very interesting, I could call it fortuitous. I have gotten to the full back end of it, but where I just feel like it's sink or swim, you know? Like I either have to make it and become, and basically live sort of the life of my dreams, or I have to die. You know, there's no middle ground anymore. And I'm not in it to me to die, but I don't think I'm going to. I just don't know what's going to happen because I don't. There's a sense of control and hopelessness that I felt, and I feel like I need to kind of talk about something because I don't know how to talk about it, and I haven't really talked with anybody about it. No friends, no nobody. But I recently fell in love pretty hard with someone that I didn't expect it, and I've been keeping my heart on guard for a while, I realize, and I fell pretty hard for this person. And I'd fallen in love and been in love with other people, but I think there's this level of like vulnerability with this person that I hadn't expressed it. And I don't know, I really felt like I showed up as best I can, and it didn't work out. When I say it didn't work out, I think it's still in the process. I don't think the story is wholly done. But I realized at some point that there's a place I needed to go. And where I needed to go, she couldn't come. And as a result of that, some things kind of went sideways. And I was accused of a lot of things. I was accused of being manipulative and controlling, and just a lot of like kind of harsh things. And I was like, I'm like, been taking the time to really think about like, am I controlling? Am I manipulative? Like, do I do these things? And as I've thought about it more, I've reflected back on a lot of other relationships I've had, with men, women, my family. And something I'd talked about it recently in a Instagram story, but I realized that I have a tendency to take the side of the other person, because I want to see the other person's point of view, and I apologize. And I think one thing I've come to see is that typically when I make a decision, there's this level of continuity. And you might be like, well, Oni, this is really, really thought out. And I think it's this very trait that people say is controlling or manipulative, because I can definitely be emotional and I can be reactive, but I think because perhaps it's unusual, but there's an unusual amount of awareness as to why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And I think when people are, I think something I've typically seen is that when that clarity is typically met, other people who are forced to have that level of clarity in order to sort of like have the conversation, or like it is incumbent on me to support them in uncovering that, right? And I've realized, because I think I'm unusually self-reflective, that level of clarity can give this sense of like being in control or being responsible, having this ability to sort of see angles and things. And I definitely will say that gives me an upper hand. I've done it in sales, I've done it when I'm connecting with people. In personal relationships, I've realized the difficulty is it puts me in positions, specifically when I offer a lot of value, where there can feel like an imbalance. And then vice versa, in places where I'm maybe not offering as much value, I oftentimes am not given the clarity, and I'm dealing with, um, with people who don't necessarily feel that they need to. And I think one thing I've felt is that I've just been really alone for a long time. And I think really, I've felt that, and I've said that. I've been saying that for so long, like how alone I felt and the misery and the sadness of all that. And it's just been this repeating cycle with so many lessons, man, so many lessons. And the lesson I've been seeing again and again is just how there's investing in myself, but I realized what it was. I realized it this Sunday, right? Or not this Sunday, but it was this Tuesday. It really hit me, and I realized what it was. And it was just, everything was so clear, and I realized I've been given a gift with this clarity, and it's incumbent on me to kind of show people, because I realize very few people in the world have that level of clarity, and it's up to me to communicate that, but I oftentimes don't feel inspired to kind of share it with people in a direct and personal way. And recently the path has been made for clear for me. The path of success, the path of purpose, the preparation period, so to speak, is kind of done. And I've lost everything, man. Like, it cost me everything to get here. And that makes me so sad. It cost me my friends. It cost me my family. It cost me so many opportunities. And like, the only certainty I have is my relationship with God and the divine. But I realize because I have that, I have everything. And it's this strange paradox, right? And I mean, in the Bible, he says that, those who lose themselves for my sake will gain everything, and those who seek the world, shall lose their soul, and or something to that effect. And I've come to see, by giving up everything, I really did gain sort of like this sense of like, oh. But now it's like about putting in the work, right? It's about really putting in that work and doing what needs to be done. And I I've had a tremendous amount of sorrow. I, and I realized when I loved this person, when you love someone, you feel their pain, you sit with them, and you feel their sorrow. And I realized there came a time where I really love the people in front of me, and I've realized what was so difficult is about loving people is that when you love them directly, uno to uno, it forces them either to love you back, which most people can't, they don't feel that, or you have to feel their experience with them, right? And when you feel your experience with them, that will disrupt the love you feel for them, right? Because I realize human beings without the support of the divine, we're not really capable of supporting loving relationships. I don't believe it. Um, I don't believe we're capable of it. Only when we go into the divinity within us. And I realized, like, as I was rising in that divinity and I loved people, in order to transcend it, I had to love people through God. I couldn't love people directly from like eye to eye, because when you look at a person eye to eye, really all you're seeing is their ego. And so it's ego to ego. It's this egoic love, right? It's based in transaction, it's based in needs, it's based in all these things. But when you can love people from the top to the bottom, there's this purity of love, and you're able to move through that sorrow. Um, and I realize in my worst moments now, I still feel that sorrow and that struggle and that lack of clarity in some ways. Um, and I think this clarity, it's put me in a place where uh, I don't feel understood. I don't feel very seen. And I certainly don't feel appreciated. And I think my ego is kind of wanting to kind of get this out. And I realize this anxiety was shutting me down. But now there's this sense of like safety and security in knowing. Like, it's weird, like when you know and you can kind of see it, you're like, oh yeah, it just all makes sense. Like, I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid to live anymore. I'm not afraid. It's just, it's a sorrow, man. I realize, it's funny when you realize how much God loves everybody, you realize the hardest thing about loving people is you really have to feel each of their situations, and you feel people's confusion, you feel their sorrow, you feel their pain. And I think the only way to really transcend it is you have to devote yourselves to them, right? And what's real is funny, is interesting, is that myself, the ego, like that is Oni, is an absence of that. And I think it took me a long time to see that, that people and me aren't necessarily separate. We're all one. And I realize most of the people in my life, most of the circumstances, they might not even see it that way. They don't. Like, whether it's my family, whether it's my friends, whether it's anyone who knows me or says who loves me, they might not really know or understand that. Hell, I'm even just I don't even really understand it, but I can witness it. And I think we all witness it in our own ways. But recently there's just been this level of clarity, and I recognize that mentally the universe is actually a pretty simple construct. Like, I don't know, it's all pretty mentally pretty easy. You realize the difficulty comes in sort of bearing that emotional load. And then when you're able to do it, you realize, oh shoot, now I have to do that and help others to do it. Because it's a process. Understanding something is like being able to look at a picture all at once and just see it for all it is. But being able to emotionally withstand it, that's like being able to paint the picture. And that's a whole different ball game. That's every single keystroke. That's every single, pencil line. That's every idea, every single layer and coat of paint. You are applying it, and you have to do that for every single person. Even if you know it, even if you have the skills, it doesn't necessarily undo the work that needs to be done. And you realize, that's why we still have wars. That's why divorces happen. That's why people hurt each other. It's because in spite of all the knowing, in spite of all the understanding, the books still need to be written, the paintings need to be painted, the songs need to be, played. Like, the thing has to be built. And you realize there's no circumventing it. Even if you see it all and you can do it perfectly in your mind, It does not take out the work that has to be done. And that work, we have to move through this dense reality. And there's some ways to transcend it and some other ways, because we've had people come before us who did that work. But now we're going to have to do the work for those to come. But you realize it's all just an eternal now. And, there's no real future or past. It's just is right now. And I was recently doing some work emotionally inside, and I've been staying away from social media and kind of the world, honestly. It's weird. I've been feeling like a freak lately, honestly. Kind of just like, it's weird because you get to this place where, I don't know, I'm having to start acknowledging and giving myself the space for that guy that feels the doubt, the guy that feels that sorrow, the guy that feels unloved and unseen and unheard. And I think for the longest time, I was always just taking responsibility and trying to fight that guy off. And now I'm kind of just able to really recognize that, yeah, there's a guy that was been abandoned, that's been unseen, that's been unheard. And I think the reason so much of the time I was seeing those experiences happen again and again and again and again was because it was like, oh, like, I just keep ignoring it. I just keep trying to, like, take responsibility and control and, pull myself up by my bootstraps, instead of recognizing that there's a part of me in my soul that has felt this way. And that until I can acknowledge feeling that way, I'm never ever going to be able to hold that feeling within others. Because my ego can handle it and move past it doesn't necessarily mean others don't have that in that experience. And if every single time that's experienced, I just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, don't make excuses, yada, 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 and I never give myself that time and that space. And the reality is, it's like, as much as I can understand it and feel that sorrow, I have no idea how to do it. I have no idea how to do it. I think I've have a tendency to be very optimistic and to turn things around and to kind of just endure trial after trial after trial, and not give up hope. And now I think it's like I've almost painted myself into this corner where I have to acknowledge that, like, I need help. And, I need help from people who love me and who can really show up for me. But I realize it's not really about people anymore. It's about myself, and it's about God, and it's about receiving that, because other people or relationships I've had can bypass me, or I can create excuses, or I can have circumstances that come and show up. But, like, I already know that I'm worthy of love. I already know that I'm worthy of being taken care of. And I don't feel this need to prove that anymore. But I think the thing I'm learning is that the pains and the sorrows and the difficulties I've been gone through, and my perspective is valid, that pain that I feel, that sorrow I feel is valid. And in spite of the fact that there's a lot of people who've not wanted to hear my side of things and who don't really care about what I think or feel, doesn't mean I have to agree with them, frankly. And what's funny is that my ability to agree with myself, I think what, for me, that I've noticed is what's cool about me is that I'm learning I'm more able to occupy and hold the space that I can hold and see this person's perspective while also honoring my own. And I can hold both those perspectives in my soul and in my heart at the same time. And I don't have to tell the other person or see them as this villain in order to validate my pain, And I don't have to do that vice versa. And I think for the longest time, I always felt that in order to validate someone else's position, I had to invalidate what I was going through. I think there was a time when I'd left a job, and I'd always characterize it as this giant mistake that I made because I broke my word. I told them that I would stay a year, and I only stayed 7 months. because the vibe and how some of the things were going, I didn't really like it. And I realized that, okay, I did break my word, and, I hurt them and they hated me, and, they don't talk to me anymore. But having said that, there was also this perspective of feeling unseen, feeling disrespected, not appreciated enough. Um, and feeling that I was unsupported. And just because I felt that way doesn't make them wrong. And just because they felt the way they did doesn't make them right either. Doesn't make me wrong. Like, it's not about right or wrong. It's not about right or wrong. I just realized, like, it's about love. And it's about seeing and being seen. And I realized so oftentimes in the circumstances I've had, whether it is like a lot of relationships, I've realized one of the blessings about being me is I've realized the other person oftentimes has an advocate in my own mind. You know what I mean? Like, when a person's arguing with me, I'm oftentimes advocating for them in my own mind, you know? And I realize I'm worthy of that same consideration. And it's been hard because I see people who, are kind of able to just easily move on after me I feel like as though I had no impact and didn't matter. But I realize everybody deals with their pain and their heartbreak and sorrow differently. Some people, not all relationships mean the same thing as they mean to me. Because relationships, and this is going to be weird, I don't think it was a mistake, but I think I'm in a weird place because I would say for the last 5 years, I have put an inordinate amount. I wouldn't say 5 years. I would say for the last 7 years. For the last 7 years, I have put an incredible amount of emphasis. No, I would actually say probably since 2018, yeah, so 6 years. So 6, 7 years, 2016, yeah. 6 or 7 years, I would say I've put a lot of emphasis on the importance of relationships. And it's funny because as I focused on relationships and trying to make my relationships better, they were there. But I would say like it wasn't rewarding. And I find that very interesting because people always talk about when you die, you know, the people you're going to miss are your loved ones. They're going to be like, oh, the people you loved and cared for. But I honestly don't feel that. I know that's true. I know that's true. But I think that's the lie is that happens because I think so many people often get deceived. And I think I was not deceived. And I realized that when you look beyond loved ones, really what you're looking for is like that godliness within yourself, that capacity to love, that looking back at your life and being like, oh yeah, I showed up the way I wanted to, you know? Like I lived with no regrets, not even like it's not even about success or having done everything I've done, but really being like, I was a good person. I was compassionate, you know? And not in a sort of purgatory chains of hell kind of way, but really like being able to look back and know that, oh yeah, I forgave those I need to forgive. And what's interesting is like as I've worked on these relationships and I spent time with people, I just realized so many people could not care less. And I was like, oh, that's why that advice is given. That advice is given because when you really go around, so many people just couldn't care less. They're so focused on all this other shit, right? It doesn't really matter. And yet I feel like if I died today, the only thing I would regret is not having fulfilled my potential. And if someone was like, oh, well, who are your loved ones and where were they? Didn't you give them enough time? I could say, 100%. There's not a single person on this planet who I love that I have not given that love and who does not know I love them. I can confidently say that. That every single person who I love and I care for, and I would want, like, if I had the deathbed, every single person who I'd want to be there knows who they are. They know who they are. They would have an invitation. There has been a slew of rejection and a slew of people who have not shown up for me. And I realize there's a lot more people in my standing next to me in my deathbed who I don't even think I wouldn't make their top 10. And I think that has just been the realization for me, was that I'm a side character in so many people's lives. I'm just an anomaly, a ghost. And that I realize for a lot of people, like, they're like, oh, you matter, but I don't really matter. And I think there's a kind of beauty in that as well. Like, there's been something to not mattering. But I think because of that, I'm definitely not people pleasing anymore. I'm very slow to try and meet and connect with other people. Not because I don't love them. I think it's because I do love them. But there's still this part of me that has been neglected for far too long, that feels like I haven't really honored and taken care of myself the way I needed to, right? Maybe it's this ego. It just sounds like it's ego, right? It just, for me, it's this, I think, this thing that so many people chase and, spend time investing in and then neglect everything else. I feel like I got everything else done except for this one thing. So there's this feeling of completion and this feeling, like, I feel so detached. Like, I don't feel like I need anything. I don't feel like I need anything to love, Even the people who love me, or, who say they love me but then don't. Or there's so many people who say they love me, and I'm okay. I'm okay admitting that, maybe there's not anyone who really cares for me, or who enjoys me, or likes me, or, maybe I'm truly alone in this world. And there's some, and I know they're like, oh, there's people, we care about you, we want you in your lives. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I get it. Yeah, sure, okay, yeah, you love me, cool, get it, yeah. So maybe it's not really about love. Maybe it's about just time and attention. It's about the things that are beyond love. Not even beyond love, but are just, it's something imperceptible but definitive in the hearts of mankind. And I think it's something that only I can give to myself at this point in time. And, it's really weird, because it's like, if I accept that everything in the world is accepting and showing me, and I feel like I'm loving, yet I don't feel loved outside of God, but then I recognize everything is God. You realize that what you're seeing in me, like when you look at individuals and their egos, maybe I'm not receiving the love there because it was only ever supposed to come from here, from within me. I don't know. It's something my brain's still wrapping around, because I can see it clearly, but I don't necessarily know how to articulate it or understand it, because I haven't gone to the end of it yet. And I think it's because I know that somehow through all this neglect and silence and quietude, that this is love for me, even though it's not necessarily love in the way I'd like it to be. But I think in sort of looking to rectify that, the one person who can show up is me. And of course, God, it's sort of this imperceptible universe, like seeing reality slide in my favor as miracles provide and show up, to know that God is truly loving me. And there's this sense of like invincibility that comes with that. And I've seen it before, you know, I've kind of seen God slide, but I don't know what the full lesson is here. Or I think it's just to be, you know, because I've always kind of felt like I had to do things a certain way. And I'm just tired, man. I'm so tired. I'm tired and alone, and I feel like nobody cares. And, you know, I made a video the other day. Once again, I don't know if anyone's going to watch this. I made a video the other day talking about what would happen if I killed myself. It was like an hour and a half long. I never posted it because I didn't want it to be like an attention bait kind of thing, right? Because I don't like getting attention and like boo-hoo. You know, I'm heartbroken, I'm alone, and I constantly seem to be stuck in corners of the world that have less to give me. And I realize all I can do is give and expand the little corners of the world I'm in. And then just hope that wherever I'm at, eventually it'll pour. Well, I think it's just I have to pour back into myself. But I don't know what that means, because I think this idea of myself has changed so much now. I don't really see myself as being separate from anything and everyone else. But there's this little inner child, this little egoic guy inside of me that still feels isolated and alone. And that guy needs to be dealt with and healed and handled and cared for. And I don't think anybody else is coming. You know? I've been asking and looking for it for a long time. No one else is coming. But what's crazy is I think that if it had happened before, I would have been bitter about it. Because the way I saw myself and the way I saw it, I was felt like I was separate from everything. But now I don't necessarily feel separate from everything. I actually kind of feel sad. Because I feel like in the opportunity of my own sort of ascension, I think there's an opportunity a lot of others will see, and it's only in the absence of missing that opportunity that they will see it. And I recognize that's the lesson probably for a lot of people. But I realize like that's what I feel, is I feel a sense of sorrow for them. And that's why I feel sorry. That's why I feel sad. Because I think I'm such a sure bet, and that things are so worthwhile, and I just see all the cracks in people's, you know, the non-clarity, the fog. There's so much fog in so many people, so much pain and obscurance. And when it's just clear, it's like, man, you really missed an opportunity here. And what's cool is like, I realize I can just find joy in the fact that I'm not going to miss that opportunity. And that I'll take care of myself, I'll grow and expand, and I'm not going to miss the opportunities because I haven't. I've not been missing my opportunities since I messed, and when I make mistakes, I rectify it. And I think there's this sense of like, when I die, I'm going to be like, man, I emptied the clip. You know what I mean? Like this sense of like, I really lived it. I really lived it as best I could, and I lived, and I'm like, I really, like, it's weird, but when I think of myself, when I close my eyes, from an ego perspective, I think I'm just so awesome. I just think like, man, Oni, like you're so cool. And I think to go on witness like that has been so painful for me. And I think now I'm finally in a place where I can kind of show the world and kind of be like, okay, world, this is who I am. And then, you know, the miracles or like things. And when I say miracles, I'm just saying like, you know what I mean? What's gonna happen? Like what's coming? And then people will be like, oh man, he's so cool, and it'll get all this validation. And I think a part of my ego will like that and enjoy that. But I realize like there's so many people, so many times where it's like, you had an opportunity, man. You had an opportunity and you missed the boat. But I realize I'm not the only opportunity that exists. There's so many other opportunities. But I realize like, I do think within myself there's a rare type of opportunity that comes, and I think in knowing me. And I think at some level, you know, I would say it was a challenge. Just in knowing me, and I think everyone, you know, they got what they needed to, and it'll come to pass. And there's only one person I can think of in my mind who's like really gonna be able to see it. One person. I was like, oh yeah, this person got love. They understood it. And that one person knows who they are. And it was like, if you don't, I'll make sure to let you know. But it was like, they'll see it and they'll reap the rewards of it. But it's like, that was there for everybody. You know, it was there for everyone who knew me, everyone who understood, who would take the time to understand. You saw it. And I think there's really only just like one person who really sees it. And I don't even know if he really sees it, but at least he's honoring it. Everything else just kind of feels like people will come and go as they please. But only one person will be able to say like, oh yeah, really be able to feel the success, because there's something to knowing that you were a part of something great. And it's weird being reduced to the bottom. So it just feels like it's between me and God now. But I want to say that I appreciate everyone who helped get me here. I appreciate all of you. Alright, I'm going to share this and go to bed or meditate or just think. Maybe not think. I've been doing plenty of that. Anyway, hope all is well. This will probably be a pivotal video one day. Love y'all.